Beloved friends, every desire within you is not a random stirring, but a divine announcement. It is the whisper of what already exists, waiting to be clothed in your experience. Desire is the seed of creation. What you long for already exists in the unseen. Desire is not a fleeting impulse or a casual want that drifts across the surface of your mind. It is a signal, a vibration from the deeper layers of your being, calling you to recognize what already belongs to you in the invisible realm of imagination. The very moment a desire stirs in your heart, it is proof that the possibility of its fulfillment already exists, for nothing can be desired that does not already have its counterpart in the unseen world. You are not inventing desire, you are discovering it, uncovering what has always been present in potential form, waiting for recognition and expression through you. When a seed is placed into the soil, it does not ask permission to become what it already contains. The seed of an apple carries the apple tree within it. The seed of a rose holds within itself the certainty of blossoms. So too does your desire carry within itself its own fulfillment. You do not create it from nothing. You nurture it into being by giving it your attention, your faith, and your willingness to accept it as already real in the invisible realm. The soil cannot deny the seed. Likewise, the universe cannot deny your true desire once it is fully assumed in consciousness. It is important to distinguish between surface wishes and deep desires. Wishes often waver, arising from comparison, envy, or temporary discontent. Deep desire, however, is constant. It returns to you in quiet moments. It stirs when you allow yourself to dream freely, and it persists regardless of circumstance. Such desire is not born of lack but of recognition. It is your deeper self revealing what is possible for you, what already exists in the unseen awaiting your acceptance. If it were impossible, you could not even imagine it. The very fact that you desire it testifies to its reality in a higher dimension. This unseen reality is the realm of imagination, the fertile ground where all things take root before appearing in form. What you accept in imagination, what you embrace with feeling and conviction, plants itself in the soil of the unseen. Just as a farmer does not dig up the soil each day to check whether the seed is growing, so must you trust the unseen process. Desire, once accepted, once nurtured by your persistent assumption, begins to move toward expression. The timeline of its appearance is not always visible, but the law is unfailing. What you imagine with conviction must mirror itself in your outer world. To live as though desire is already fulfilled is the secret. When you rise in the morning, instead of asking when or how it will come, ask yourself how you would think, act, and feel if it were already yours. If your desire were fulfilled today, how would your mind rest? How would your heart respond? By assuming the end and living in its atmosphere, you water the seed of desire with conviction. You no longer approach life as one seeking, but as one expressing what is already true. And just as an echo must return the sound that was sent, the world must return the state you have assumed in consciousness. Every event in your outer life is an echo of an inner state. The people you meet, the opportunities that appear, even the obstacles that seem to stand in your way, are all reverberations of the inner vibration you are sending forth. If you dwell on absence, the echo you receive is absence. If you dwell on fulfillment, the echo returns fulfillment. The law does not fade. The echo cannot return something different from the sound that was given. Therefore, the work is not to struggle with the external world, but to change the internal assumption. To change the echo, change the voice that speaks within. Consider this. Every great invention, every work of art, every movement of progress began as a desire in someone's imagination. The world we now call reality once lived only in unseen form. The telephone, the airplane, the towering city, each was once only a seed of desire in the mind of its creator. What separated those who realized it from those who only dreamed idly was the willingness to persist in the assumption that their desire was real. They watered the seed with conviction, lived as though it must come, and reality answered with form. Your life is no different. The echo chamber of existence responds to your inner dialogue. What you whisper in imagination, what you rehearse in feeling, reverberates until it returns. Therefore, Guard the conversations of your heart. When doubt rises, recognize the noise that distorts the echo. Replace it with the certainty of fulfillment, and soon the echo clears. Desire is not mocked, for it comes with its own guarantee of completion when faithfully nurtured. To understand desire in this way is to see that you are never separate from what you long for. You are united with it the moment you feel it. The distance between you and your desire is not one of time or space, but of assumption. The instant you align yourself with the state of the wish fulfilled, the unseen moves, the echo formant begins its ineffable journey into visibility. You do not chase it, you embody it. You do not wait for it, you accept it is already done. In this way, desire is the map, imagination the territory where you walk until the outer world aligns. Nothing is created outside that is not first accepted within. The unseen is the womb of creation, and desire is the sign that conception has already occurred. When you nurture it faithfully, when you persist in the end, when you allow yourself to dwell in the state as though it were already here, the seed matures. The echo returns, and the unseen steps forth into the seen. Imagination is the divine echo chamber where desire speaks and reality replies. Within this chamber, every thought, every image, every assumption is not merely a fleeting spark, but a cause set into motion, destined to return as effect. When you close your eyes and dwell in imagination, you are not playing with shadows. You are entering the sacred workshop of creation, where unseen forces take shape and prepare to reveal themselves as your lived experience. It is here that desire first makes its voice heard, and it is here that reality begins to form its reply. Imagination does not imitate reality, it generates it. What you entertain within this inner sanctuary is not confined to idle fantasy, but carries the weight of law. The pictures you hold and the feelings you sustain in imagination send out vibrations that must echo back in form. Just as a sound cannot enter an echo chamber without returning to its source, no thought sustained in imagination can fail to return as the outer world. Reality is the faithful servant of imagination, and what you decree within yourself cannot be denied expression without your consent. Desire comes as a spark, a whisper of possibility. Left unattended, it fades. But when you feed it imagination, when you give it shape, clothe it with feeling, and persist in the assumption of its fulfillment, it resounds in the echo chamber until the outer world must answer. You need not beg for results. You need only speak boldly in imagination, knowing that the reply is certain. Reality does not create itself independently of you. It echoes you. It mirrors the tones you strike within. Consider how sound works in a great hall. A whisper may return faintly, while a powerful voice reverberates with force. So too with imagination, the more conviction you give the inner assumption, the stronger and swifter the echo in reality. If you waver, the echo is muddled, fragmented. But if you persist with clarity, imagining the end is already true, the echo comes back undeniable. What you feel as real imagination becomes the sound to which reality must respond. The external world is but the stage where your inner play is acted out. Every person you meet, every circumstance that confronts you, every event that unfolds is the echo of the drama rehearsed in imagination. If you feel unseen, it is because in imagination you dwell on neglect. If you feel loved, because imagination you accepted love as your state. If you experience abundance, it is because you rehearsed abundance as your inner reality. The world does not conspire against you or in your favor. It only echoes the assumptions you entertain. To use imagination rightly, you must learn to live in the end. This means imagining not the process of attaining your desire, but the state of already possessing it. If health is your desire, you do not imagine recovery as a future event. You imagine yourself now strong, vibrant, and whole. If wealth is your desire, you do not imagine the means by which you may come. You imagine yourself now living in freedom, security, and abundance. The echo chamber does not respond to questions of how or when. It responds only to the state assumed as already real. Imagination requires faith, for the outer world often appears unchanged while the echo is still forming. But just as sound takes a moment to return in a vast space, so too may the reply of reality take time to appear. Yet it is certain. The law does not fail. The echo cannot return silence when sound has been spoken. In patience, you persist, holding to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, knowing that unseen movements are aligning themselves with your assumption. There is no power outside imagination greater than imagination itself. To seek confirmation in facts is to ignore the source of facts. The echo does not create the voice, it only reflects it. Likewise, the world does not create your imagination, it only mirrors it. To attempt to change the mirror without altering the face it reflects is futile. Change your inner dialogue, your inner images, your inner assumptions, and the mirror must change. Imagination is not limited by present circumstances. It does not ask whether conditions are favorable, whether resources are available, or whether others approve. It accepts the desire as already real, and in doing so forth the means by which reality can reply. Roads appear where none existed. Doors open that seemed sealed. People and events align in ways the rational mind could never predict. These are not coincidences. They are the echo of your inner state returning faithfully to its source. In imagination, you are free. You are not bound by the limitations of time, space, or condition. You may assume yourself to be anywhere, to have anything, to be anyone. And in that assumption, you sow the seeds of reality. The echo chamber is impartial. It does not judge whether your assumption is small or grand, noble or trivial. It simply replies in kind. The responsibility, then, is yours to imagine wisely, to feel boldly, and to persist in the state that aligns with your true desire. Every great transformation in life begins in imagination. The artist paints in mind before brush meets canvas. The architect designs in thought before stone is laid. The inventor sees the finished creation before metal is shaped. Imagination is always the beginning, and reality is always the reply. The world you inhabit now is nothing more than the echo of imaginations past, the result of assumptions once held, consciously or unconsciously. To change the world, change the sound you send forth in imagination. The divine echo chamber is always open, always responsive, always faithful. The voice of your desire never goes unheard. When you enter imagination with conviction, when you allow the feeling of fulfillment to saturate your being, the chamber resounds and reality prepares its reply. Nothing is denied you but what you refuse to imagine as already yours. Nothing delays but your wavering assumption. The chamber awaits your voice, and the echo is certain every inner assumption sets off a vibration that must return as experience. The unseen currents of thought, belief, and imagination move through the depths of consciousness, and though invisible to the eye, they carry with them a force that shapes the visible world. Assumptions are not idle daydreams. They are the silent architects of reality. The moment you assume a thing to be true, you strike a chord within the great symphony of existence, and that chord must echo back as the outer life you encounter. Assumption is more powerful than fleeting thought, for it is thought clothed in feeling. It is the belief that something is not merely possible but actual. To assume is to accept the state as your own, to walk within it mentally until it feels natural, inevitable, undeniable. And when the assumption feels real to you, it sets in motion the vibration that reality must match. No force in the external world can resist the return of that vibration once it has been planted and nurtured in consciousness. Think of a tuning fork struck in a silent room. The vibration cannot remain hidden. It travels through the air, making itself heard and felt. Strike another fork of the same pitch, and it will begin to vibrate in resonance. So too with your assumptions once struck in the silence of the mind. They travel into the unseen field of life, and all that corresponds to their pitch begins to move toward you. Circumstances, people, and events align themselves with the vibration of your inner state. Every assumption you hold is a seed cast into the soil of imagination. Whether the seed is one of lack or one of abundance, of joy or sorrow, of success or failure, the soil does not discriminate. It accepts without judgment and returns to you in kind. If you assume failure, the vibration of failure calls forth experiences that echo that state. If you assume success, the vibration of success must echo back as opportunities, outcomes, and encounters that reflect it. Life is impartial. It does not give you what you deserve, but what you assume. The challenge lies in the subtlety of assumption. Many are unaware of the assumptions they carry daily, for these are not always declared openly, but felt inwardly. A person may speak words of hope while secretly assuming defeat. They may outwardly act confident while inwardly dwelling in fear. It is the inner assumption, not the outer appearance, that sets off the vibration. The law responds not to lip service, but to the secret conviction of the heart. To take control of assumption is to take control of experience. It requires vigilance, the quiet observation of the self. Ask, what am I assuming about life? Do I assume that I am loved, or do I assume that I am overlooked? Do I assume that abundance flows to me, or do I assume that struggle is my portion? Each assumption, whether conscious or unconscious, sets off its vibration, and the return is inevitable. To change the vibration, change the assumption. If you would transform your world, begin by transforming the states you accept as real. Assume the end boldly, even if the facts of the present deny it. The vibration of assumption is stronger than the inertia of fact, for fact is only the echo of past assumptions. New assumptions, persistently held, must send forth a new vibration, and the echo must come. It cannot fail, for the law of resonance is unbreakable. Consider how this law has played out in your life already. Reflect on moments where you were certain, without doubt, that something would occur, and it did. Reflect on moments where fear consumed you, and what you dreaded came to pass. Both certainty and fear are forms of assumption. One assumes fulfillment, the other assumes loss, but both set off vibrations that reality echoes. Once you understand this, you see that your power lies not in controlling the outer world directly, but in mastering the assumptions you choose within. It is not effort, struggle, or constant the return of experience, but the quiet, steady acceptance of a state as true. Action may follow, but it is guided by assumption, not the source of creation itself. A man may labor endlessly and yet assume lack, and his vibration calls forth lack despite his work. Another may act simply, but assume abundance, and life arranges itself to bring him prosperity. The difference is not in the outer effort, but in the inner vibration. Persistence is the key. An assumption briefly held may set off a faint vibration, but one abandoned quickly dissolves before the echo can return. To persist in the end, to hold the feeling of the wish fulfilled with unwavering conviction, strengthens the vibration until it dominates the unseen. Then the echo comes with certainty, reshaping facts to match the state assumed. The world bends itself to the vibration you persist in sending. Every inner assumption is like a command issued to the subconscious, and the subconscious carries out its instructions without hesitation. It arranges the body, the mind, and the outer world in harmony with the assumption it has been given. It does not argue or question, it accepts. If you assume health, the subconscious begins to align every process toward health. If you assume weakness, it aligns toward weakness. The subconscious is the soil, the assumption the seed, and life the harvest. Thus, assumptions are not idle fantasies, they are created decrees. To assume is to declare, this is true of me. And once declared with feeling, the unseen begins its movement toward fulfillment. Every vibration must return, and every assumption must clothe itself in form. Whether or not you recognize it, you are always assuming, always vibrating, always creating the experiences that surround you. The external world is not separate, but a mirror reflecting inner states. Every scene you encounter, every person who crosses your path, every circumstance that unfolds before your eyes is nothing more than the outer projection of the inner assumptions you carry. Life has no independence from the consciousness that observes it. The world is not something happening to you. It is happening through you. What you see outside is the echo of what you have accepted within. This mirror principle is inescapable. Just as a physical mirror faithfully reflects the image placed before it, the external world reflects the states of mind and heart you sustain. When you live in a state of fear, the world appears. In a state of love, the world reveals kindness. When you live in a state of abundance, Opportunities seem to appear naturally. Yet the mirror is not the cause, it is only the effect. To attempt to change the mirror without altering the image is futile. The transformation begins and ends within. The secret lies in understanding that the world cannot show you anything you have not first assumed in consciousness. If you persist in believing you are overlooked, life will supply endless evidence of neglect. If you assume that you are favored, life will conspire to confirm that truth. The mirror does not judge, it does not filter, it does not decide what is worthy to reflect. It simply shows what is placed before it. The responsibility rests entirely with you to decide what inner state you will project. When one grasps this principle, blame loses its power. No longer can you point to others as the cause of your condition. No longer can you insist that circumstances are independent forces acting upon you. To do so is to deny the mirror and imagine it moves of its own accord. The wiser path is to recognize that everything encountered is but the return of an inner state, and if the reflection is unpleasant, it is an invitation to change the inner picture. The outer world is a living drama staged by the unseen playwright within. Each actor plays the part your inner assumptions assign to them. If you assume betrayal, someone will appear to play the betrayer. If you assume loyalty, someone will appear to play the faithful companion. The cast may change, the scenery may shift, but the roles are determined by the inner script. And when you revise the script, the entire production must change. This understanding frees you from victimhood, for as long as you believe the world is separate, you will attempt to fight shadows, to resist reflections, to battle against outcomes that seem beyond your control. But once you see that the world is only a mirror, you turn inward and the struggle ends. You cease attempting to polish the mirror and instead adjust the image. The change is subtle at first, yet profound. For as the inner state shifts, the mirror begins to return a new reflection. The process of change is not one of efforting against the world, but of gently assuming a new state. If lack appears in the mirror, assume abundance within. If conflict appears as a mirror, assume harmony within. If rejection appears in the mirror, assume acceptance within. The external reflection may take time to catch up, but it cannot fail to do so, for the mirror cannot resist showing what it is given. Many resist this truth because they are attached to facts. They see the outer reflection and declare it reality, unaware that is only yesterday's state brought into view. Facts are but frozen reflections of past assumptions. To cling to them is to keep the same image before the mirror. To persist in a new inner state, regardless of current facts, is to supply the mirror with a new image. Soon the old reflection fades and the new one appears. Consider the man who assumes himself to be successful. Though outwardly he may still be struggling, inwardly he accepts the state of success as his reality. He imagines himself praised, respected, accomplished. He feels the satisfaction of achievement in the quiet of his heart. The mirror, at first, shows little change, but he persists. Gradually, circumstances shift. Opportunities arise, opportunity comes. Others see only his sudden rise, but he knows it began the moment he assumed success within. The same law applies in every domain of life. Relationships, health, wealth, creativity, all are reflections of inner states. A person who assumes they are unloved will encounter evidence of coldness, distance, and neglect. Another who assumes they are cherished will encounter warmth, kindness, and care. The body itself mirrors inner assumptions, for health and sickness alike are shaped by the state sustained within. Nothing stands outside the mirror's law. To master this principle is to live consciously. Instead of drifting through life reacting to reflection, you deliberately choose the inner states you will entertain. You ask not, why is the mirror showing this? But rather, what state within me is it reflecting? And then you assume in you. The outer world adjusts not because you fought it into submission, but because you supplied the mirror with a new image. The external world is not separate, but a mirror reflecting inner states. To believe otherwise is to wander lost, blaming shadows for their shapes. But when you accept the mirror for what it is, you reclaim your creative power. You cease to plead with the reflection, and instead stand before the mirror with authority, knowing that the image you assume within will unfailing return as the world you behold to persist in the end feeling, living as though it is already fulfilled, draws the echo closer. The end feeling is not a faint hope or a distant dream. It is the conscious choice to occupy the state of fulfillment now, regardless of appearances. When you dwell in the end, when you make your home in the sensation that your desire is already accomplished, you set in motion the law that cannot fail to deliver its echo. The world must rearrange itself to mirror the state you have claimed. Persistence is the key, for the mind is easily swayed by appearances. The facts of the moment cry out, insisting they are reality. Yet facts are only reflections of past assumptions, and to be guided by them is to remain chained to yesterday. Persistence means you return again and again to the end, refusing to be distracted by what the senses report. You hold the state until it feels natural, until it becomes the very atmosphere you breathe. And when the end feeling is sustained, the echo quickens, and reality bends itself to match your conviction. To live as though the desire were already fulfilled is to step out of waiting and into being. Waiting says, it will happen someday. Being says, it is happening now. Waiting vibrates with lack, being vibrates with possession. The echo responds not to the words you speak, but to the state you occupy. When you live in the state of the end, you signal to the unseen that the matter is settled, and the reply must come. This living is not pretending or forcing, but surrendering to the reality of the unseen. Pretending suggests it is not true, while living in the end accepts it as the only truth. The imagination becomes your dwelling place. You see yourself as already there, already enjoying the fulfillment, already resting in its completion. You walk, talk, and think from the place of fulfillment, and soon the outer world has no choice but to conform. Consider the power of feeling. Thought alone, when fleeting, may have little force, but thought clothed in feeling becomes assumption, and assumption is creative. To persist in the end feeling is to take thought beyond idle speculation in the certainty of reality. Feeling gives substance to imagination, and persistence seals it into being. Each return to the end strengthens the vibration until it dominates consciousness, and the echo cannot be delayed. The echo is not drawn by effort, but by alignment. You do not chase after it, you invite it by living in the state where it already exists. Imagine a magnet drawing iron filings. The filings move not because the magnet chases them, but because its very presence compels alignment. So too does persistence in the end draw the desired reflection. You become the magnet by dwelling the fulfilled state, and the world must respond accordingly. Obstacles dissolve when persistence is practiced, not because they are fought directly, but because they lose their meaning in the end. If you are living as though the desire is already fulfilled, the obstacle is seen as irrelevant, powerless to alter the outcome. Persistence does not deny obstacles, but robs them of authority. The end is held so firmly that the seeming barriers fade into shadows, incapable of resisting the echo. It is important to recognize that persistence is not strain. Strain suggests struggle, a desperate effort to make something happen. True persistence is calm, steady, quiet. It is the willingness to return, again and again, to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, regardless of what arises. It is gentle but unyielding, like water that carves stone not through force but through constancy. In the same way, your constant return to the end feeling shapes reality until it must yield. Examples abound in life of those who, against all visible evidence, persisted in the feeling of their fulfillment and saw it come to pass. The inventor who sees his creation long before it is visible to others, the artist who feels the completed work before brush touches canvas, the dreamer who lives in the atmosphere of success while still unknown. Each draws the echo closer by dwelling in the end. To the world, their faith may appear a folly, but to the law, it is the surest path to realization. To persist in the end feeling requires imagination disciplined by love of the desire. You must care enough for the fulfillment to give it your attention, to nurture it, to return to it when doubts arise. Love makes persistence natural, for what you love you return to easily. The end becomes your resting place, the place you preferred as well, and the more you inhabit it, the sooner its echo appears. Even small acts of persistence matter. Each time you choose the end over doubt, you strengthen the state. Each time you revise a thought of failure into a thought of success, you draw the echo nearer. Each time you refuse to be swayed by appearances, you deepen your conviction. Persistence is not one great effort, but many small returns, until the end feeling is so natural that it no longer feels like imagination at all. It feels like reality itself. The law cannot resist persistence. The mirror must reflect what is before it. And if you continually hold the end feeling, the mirror has no choice but to show its image. What begins as imagination becomes assumption, and what becomes assumption must clothe itself in fact. The echo grows louder, closer, clearer, until it fills the world you walk through. And all of it begins with the choice to live now in the state of fulfillment, to dwell in the end as though it were already so, and to persist there until the echo replies faith is not passive waiting, but active assuming of the desired state until the echo becomes flesh. Faith is not the idle hope that one day circumstances will improve of their own accord, nor is it the anxious prayer that something outside of you may take pity and intervene. True faith is the bold acceptance that the unseen is already real, that the desire you hold in consciousness exists now in the invisible, and that by assuming it with persistence, you summon it into visibility. Faith lives in the certainty of the end, not in the wavering of the process. To assume the desired state is to claim it as your present reality. You close your eyes to the evidence of the senses and open your heart to the reality of imagination. You feel the wish fulfilled now, not tomorrow. You walk in its atmosphere, think from its standpoint, and rest in its completion. This assumption is the essence of faith, for faith declares what is unseen as seen, what is intangible as tangible, and what is only whisper the soul as already spoken in the world. Passive waiting produces nothing. Waiting implies lack. Waiting declares, it is not here yet. Waiting vibrates with absence and therefore calls forth more absence. Active assuming, however, vibrates with presence. It declares, it is here now. And because the world mirrors inner states without fail, this assumption becomes the seed of its manifestation. The echo may take time to return, but it must return, for faith never speaks in vain. Faith is an act of imagination clothed in conviction. To act in faith is not to strain or force, but to live inwardly from the end. You assume the role of the one who already possesses the desire. You inhabit the identity of fulfillment until it becomes natural. Just as an actor so immerses himself in a role that he forgets himself for a time, so does faith immerse itself in the end until the self and the state are indistinguishable. The outer world, as the mirror, has no choice but to reflect what has been fully assumed within. The persistence of faith distinguishes it from mere wishing. A wish is fragile. It fades when contradicted by fact. Faith, however, persists. It returns again and again to the end, refusing to be swayed by appearances. When doubts arise, faith reasserts the assumption. When obstacles appear, faith stands firm in its conviction. This persistence generates a vibration so consistent that the echo must grow louder until it solidifies as flesh. Faith is creative law in action. The unseen does not respond to tease or to desperate effort, but to the quiet certainty of assumption. When you believe yourself to be healthy, though sickness seems present, you impress health upon the subconscious, and it begins to arrange the body in harmony with that assumption. When you believe yourself to be prosperous, though the evidence declares lack, you impress wealth upon the subconscious, and life begins to unfold in life that reveal abundance. The assumption is the command, and the subconscious carries it out without resistance. Active assuming also transforms behavior, for when you accept the end as real, your actions naturally align with it. The person who assumes success walks differently, speaks differently, carries themselves with a new authority. The person who assumes love radiates warmth, openness, and confidence. These outward shifts are not forced, but flow naturally from the inner assumption, and they in turn accelerate the arrival of the echo. Faith also requires imagination disciplined by feeling. It is not enough to speak words of affirmation if they are not felt as true. The power lies not in repetition alone, but in the saturation of consciousness with the feeling of fulfillment. To say, I am wealthy, while feeling lack is to assume lack, not wealth. But to say, I am wealthy, while feeling a wellness in the heart, is to impress wealth upon the inner self, and the echo cannot resist. Feeling is the lifeblood of assumption, and without it, faith is lifeless. Examples of faith surround us in every creation. The architect does not wait passively for a building to rise. He assumes it first in his mind, seeing the finished structure as though it already stands. The inventor does not hope passively for discovery. He assumes the invention is and is from its reality and imagination until it takes form. The mother does not wait passively for her child to grow within her. She assumes the life is already there, unseen but certain until it appears. In each case, faith is not waiting. It is assuming the unseen as real. Faith also dissolves fear, for fear is faith in the wrong direction. Fear assumes failure, assumes rejection, assumes disaster. Faith assumes success, assumes love, assumes safety. Both are acts of imagination clothed in feeling, and both set vibrations in motion that return as experience. To practice faith is to redirect imagination away from fear and toward fulfillment, knowing that the echo will reply to whichever assumption you persist in. Faith is not passive resignation, but active creation. It does not sit idly, hoping the world will change. It boldly declares the change within and trusts the law to echo it back. It does not wait for evidence to appear before believing. It believes, and by believing, compels the evidence to appear. It does not look to others for validation. It rests in the certainty of the unseen, and knows the mirror must comply. Faith is living now as though the echo has already returned. It is eating at the table as though the banquet were already set, walking the path as though the destination were already reached, embracing the loved one as though the reunion had already occurred. This inner living is the magnet that draws the unseen into the seen, the formless into form, the desire into flesh. To practice faith in this way is to wield the greatest creative power available to man, for faith assumes boldly, persists unshaken, and by its certainty transforms imagination into reality. So let your desires rise not as longings but as certainties. Step into the echo chamber with confidence. Speak with imagination, persist with love, and the world cannot help but return your desire, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Thank you.